The Divided by Ryan Hunter is the sequel to Indivisible, which I reviewed a while back. There is a link for it right there, and there's also one in the box below. This is a young adult dystopian series. Unlike other dystopians, I felt this stuck to a much more realistic version of the possible future should a tyrannical government ever take control, which I found quite refreshing. There's no obvious oppression, it's very subtle, and I think that's closer to how such an event would actually take place, which also lends the story more emotional impact because, unfortunately, I could actually see something like this happening, maybe, someday. For me, this had a very Revolution vibe, sans lack of power. They trek through a lot of deserted cities, which is always great for ambiance. I found the second book to be even better than the first one, and I think that has as much to do with my continued exposure to the genre as the gripping storyline. Indivisible was far from boring, but I think The Divided is even more intense, better paced, and has terrific development for the characters. Hunter tackles the idea of a revolution with compelling and heartbreaking questions. The characters are convinced that the best thing is for them to rise up against their government, but they're constantly faced with the fact that such action would get a lot of people killed. Such questions aren't always focused on in these kinds of stories, and it added an insane human element, and also to the extreme realism that Hunter always manages to infuse. These books are amazing and compelling reads, but they can be uncomfortable too, because they often deal with sensitive topics like that. I found myself constantly blown away asking what I would do in that situation. There are 3 potential love interests in this story. Normally, I would think that was overkill. When I was reading it and I realized that there were 3, I may have actually rolled my eyes, but I was surprised to find that it actually worked. My only issue was that the main characters did seem to have a little inconsistency from beginning to the rest of the story about her romantic involvement, but I don't really want to expound more on that because it's major spoilers. Hunter does a terrific job balancing these 3 different relationships and developing them. She has a talent for entwining the romantic subplot with the overall story without favoring one above the other. They mesh together almost seamlessly and complement each other throughout. The Divided by Ryan Hunter gets 4.5 stars, and I think this was even better than the first book. If you like dystopia, you ought to pick this series up, though I will caution you that some of the scenes get a little graphic where injuries are concerned, which just adds to the amazing, if at times disconcerting, realism of the overall story.